expenditures, but it's two other funds, such as purchases from the electric department and the water department. The revenues and sources of funds that are presented here are operating revenues and then transfers in. There's a third source, which is the planned spend down of the fund balance, which basically each year we adopt a budget which sets forth carryovers, which could be from previous year's activities. But in addition to that, it can be a spend down of the fund balance that existed at that point at the end of the fiscal year. Okay? That's basically how you end up balancing the budget. If you look at the paragraph after the figures are presented, it says in addition to the revenues and transfers in, the budget for fiscal year 86 authorized through carryovers to spend down 1.114741 billion. Basically what that said was that the budget was planned to be balanced last year through the spending of carryover, which in effect is the fund balance, as well as spend down of the fund balance itself. Basically, we had a fund balance that was higher than necessary, and we planned to spend it down.
Where did that money come from? From the year before?
From the year before.
But where did the money come from? Was that part of the cable settlement that was left over?
So basically, you have two components to the fund. Balance of the fund itself. In fact, the net or the total position. The second is the net from operation. Basically, you take the income and expenditures over the year. The net of those two will produce for either net profit, operating surplus, or an operating deficit. That operating surplus will increase the fund balance at the end of the year. With an operating deficit, it would decrease it. Okay. Basically, what that's saying is that as of June 30th of any particular year, those are the funds available to you to spend out of your reserve or surplus, assuming you have a positive figure. What the fiscal year 1986 budget said was that there would be carryovers, net of operating income over operating expenses, approximately $825,000, and then another $290,000 spending down of the fund balance at that point in time. So the total sources of funds available to balance the budget from the fund balance were $1.1 billion. The amount that we actually ended up using, the amount of fund balance that was produced, $147,041,000. Basically, then $443,000 less of revenues in the fund balance than we had budgeted and authorized. When we then started fiscal year 1987 on July 1, we said we believe that figure will be about $423,000. In fact, it was about $443,000. We finished the year about $20,000. This is the simplest way to present it. We finished the fiscal year about $20,000 better than we had budgeted before.
I'm sorry, finish.
Go ahead
again.
Okay. The budget for fiscal year 1986, including actual revenues and expenditures, we finished fiscal year 1986 with $443,000 available to carry over into the fiscal year 87 budget. In fact, we budgeted about $423,000. We finished the year with a margin of $20,000 better than we thought we would.
And all this spending, I'm not trying to, maybe the best question up in here, but I'm trying to understand this. I mean, all this spending
Here. To put it into context, the city started fiscal year 1985, started fiscal year 1986, ended fiscal year 1985, basically going from June 30 to July 1. With a fund balance of just over $1.7 million. The budget that was adopted by the City Council authorized $1.1 current level of undiscipline. So in effect,
on any media person's mind, and go on from there. You guys ready? Okay. Let me begin by expressing, along with all the people of the city of Burlington, our shock and disgust at the senseless murder which took place on Saturday night of two young people in Burlington. And my condolences, and I know the condolences of the people of the city of Burlington, go out to the families who were affected by that murder. And our sincere hope, of course, is that the police department will apprehend that individual or individuals who are responsible for that unspeakable act. On Saturday afternoon, December 6th, the Progressive Coalition will be holding its convention in order to discuss the major issues facing the city and to endorse a candidate for the mayor of Burlington. I intend to seek that nomination and will be asking for the support of the Progressive Coalition for a fourth term. In the last 6 years, in my view, the city of Burlington has come a very long way. Like every other city in America, especially in these times of federal cutbacks, we have our share of problems. And some of them are serious and some of them are complex. But I do believe that it is fair to say that in almost every area in which city government functions, we have taken great strides forward in making Burlington city government more responsive to the needs of the people and in opening up the political process to the voices of the people. We are not perfect, and running a city government is not easy. But I believe that we are moving forward rapidly in the right direction, and I would very much appreciate the opportunity to be part of that exciting process as mayor and to serve another 2 years as chief executive officer of this great city. On Saturday at the Progressive Coalition Convention, I intend to discuss at greater length the issues and challenges that I see facing the city. But I want to touch now upon some of the important themes that we will be articulating throughout the campaign. I remember back at my first inaugural address in this room in April of 1981. And I remember promising that the city of Burlington would finally address the problems of our deteriorating streets and sidewalks. Back then, as many of our citizens will remember, our streets and sidewalks were falling apart. There was no plan to deal with the problem and no money to deal with the problem. Today, I am proud to say that we have come a long way in improving the quality of our streets and our sidewalks. Virtually every major artery in the city of Burlington, Main Street, North Avenue, Pine Street, Shelburne Road, Colchester Avenue, Pearl Street, to name a few, as well as dozens of smaller streets and sidewalk segments, have seen major repairs. And within 4 years, every street and every sidewalk in the city of Burlington that needs improving will be improved. Further, we now have a street repaving plan and money available so that we can, for the first time in our history, have a sane and cost-effective maintenance program to make sure that we never go back to where we used to be in terms of streets and sidewalks. Further, we have finally begun the long and expensive effort to solve the serious problems of sewer backup in people's basements and the obsolescence of our wastewater plants, which are inadequately dealing with the effluent leaving our sewers. This city has pledged to take a leadership role in preserving our environment in terms of sewage, solid waste, tree planting, parks improvement, height limitations on buildings, air pollution, and sensible road design. And we intend to continue our leadership role in these areas. When we talk about the needs of our city and where we want to go into the future, it is necessary to talk about money, not only the budget and how we expend our funds, but equally important, how we bring in, how we raise the money that we need to run the city properly. In terms of taxation, I'm extremely proud of the role that the city of Burlington has played in just beginning, to break our dependency on the regressive and unfair property tax. No city in the history of this state has moved faster and more effectively than we have in the area of finding progressive alternatives to the property tax, which is the major reason why we have not had to raise general city property taxes in this city for the last 5 years. Clearly, much more work has to be done in this area, and I hope that as mayor of this city, I will be able to continue to work with the Vermont League of Cities and Towns, the state legislature, and other organizations in order to continue our fight to break our dependency upon the property tax and to establish a more equitable tax system in Vermont, which is based upon a new and mutually respectful relationship between state government and local government. Presently now, that relationship is absurd. We are beginning to make some progress. We clearly have a long way to go, and I want to play an important role in that process. In the area of economic development, I'm very proud of the work that is being done by the city's Community and Economic Development Office. Today, the city of Burlington boasts one of the lowest unemployment rates in America. Clearly, much of this positive economic climate is related to the relatively healthy economic climate throughout all of New England. But there is no question but that hundreds of new jobs in our city have been created through the outstanding and innovative efforts of our CEDO office. Today, for example, few will deny that the Old North End is in better economic condition than it has been for many, many years, or that the Pine Street area of Burlington today is now one of the fastest growing areas in terms of small business development that exists any place in Vermont, and we're very proud of those accomplishments. In terms of waterfront development, our goal of creating a beautiful, people-oriented waterfront which is open to all of the people of our city, in that goal, I believe that we have begun to make considerable progress. I am proud today that with the construction of the new bicycle path which runs from one end of the city to the other, more and more people are getting a chance to see the waterfront and enjoy the waterfront, and I am very proud of the fact that the city has doubled the size of Perkins Pier Park and made it open for people to enjoy it in a large variety of ways. Obviously, we have made a start, but it is very clear that much, much more work has got to be done in that area. A city is made up of streets and sidewalks, sewer systems and parks, but mostly a city is about people, human beings, and how they relate to each other and how they care about each other. During the last several years, amidst great controversy on occasion, the city of Burlington has established new programs which are providing significant help to a wide variety of our citizens. We have established, for example, a Council on Women, which has done an outstanding job in protecting the interests of women in our community and in developing new ideas which are improving the quality of life not only for women, but for all of our citizens. I am proud that the city has led the state effort in abolishing discrimination in housing and in developing an ordinance which, for the first time, guarantees job opportunities for women construction workers in the building trades area. We are proud of these accomplishments and intend to continue giving vigorous support in the struggle for women's equality. We are also extremely proud of the record we have established for the youth of our city. We are proud of the establishment of a youth office, a daycare center, after-school programs, a new teen center, and a wide variety of youth employment programs. So long as I am mayor, we will continue to do our best to make certain that young people remain an active part of what Burlington city government is all about. In terms of cultural activities, I believe very strongly that the arts and cultural activities in general must be an important part of what community, and a sense of community, is about. And the city must provide free and inexpensive cultural activities to all of its people, regardless of income. That's what quality of life is about. That's what sharing is about. That's what coming together is about. To conclude, I am seeking my fourth term as mayor of the city of Burlington. In my view, during the last 6 years, much has been accomplished. and yet much more needs to be done. If democratic society is to survive, we need the participation and the involvement of all the people. I look forward to this re-election effort, and during the next several months, I intend to campaign vigorously, knocking on as many doors as I can, going to as many public meetings as I can, and basically meeting as many of the people in our city as I possibly can. As usual, it will be my intention to run a positive, issue-oriented campaign which will defend our record, a record that we are very proud of, and which will also speak to the vision of what the city of Burlington must become in the years in the future. Thank you very much.
Mayor, why should people of Burlington re-elect you when it seems that you have your eyes on statewide office rather than on the city of Burlington?
Well, let me rephrase that question, if I might, Bob. I'm glad you asked that question, because I want to deal with it. And let me, for a start, talk a little bit about my decision to run for governor of the state of Vermont, which I made 7 months ago. Clearly, one of the major reasons that I ran for governor of the state of Vermont is because I am as familiar with, because I'm mayor of the city, with the absurd relationship which exists between state government and local government, specifically the city of Burlington. And as a candidate for governor, I did my best to raise the issues which are extremely relevant, not only to the people of Burlington, but to the people of every city and town in the state of Vermont. I did not turn my back on the people of Burlington. I fought for them in that process. For example, right now, the school board of the city of Burlington is going to have to contemplate how they put together a budget for next year, and they're looking at a significant increase in property taxes for that purpose. As a candidate for governor, I was the only candidate to address the disastrous state aid to education formula, which is treating the city of Burlington and many other flawed towns grossly inequitably. And I was the only candidate for governor to say that we need significant increases in state aid to education. In terms of the whole issue of the property tax and our dependency on the property tax, that was an issue that I raised as governor, and I think it's important to get that issue discussed in the legislature, and I think as a result of my campaign, there will probably be more discussion of that issue. In terms of utility rates, in terms of health care issues, those are issues in terms of daycare, in terms of social services. Those are all issues that are extremely relevant to the people of the city of Burlington. When I decided to run for governor, what I said to the people of Burlington is that I would do my best to make certain that while I was campaigning for governor, the business of the city of Burlington would be well taken care of, and it was. We have an excellent administration who did their job. I worked maybe doubly hard to make sure that I was on top of what was going on. We did our job. So I have no apologies to make. I think it is within the American political process that public officials have the right to run for higher office. I'm sure, for example, right now that Governor Kunin and her colleagues are debating whether or not she'll be running for higher office. Attorney General Easton 2 years ago made the decision to step up. It is not a new idea. I cannot at this time say whether I will be a candidate for governor 2 years from now. I don't know. I really don't. 2 years is a very long time. I am not going to say unequivocally that I will not be a candidate. That wouldn't be true. It would certainly be absolutely absurd to say that I am going to be a candidate. What I am running for right now is for mayor of the city of Burlington. I'm proud of what we've accomplished. There's an enormous amount of city work that has to be done within the next 2 years, and I intend to do it as best as I can.
Mayor, a tangent from Bob's question, it's true that Johnny's going to run for governor and Madeline soon may run for something else, but we don't expect Johnny to run for Attorney General again, and I guess the question is, after having been mayor for 5 years, do you still have the fresh ideas and the energy and so forth that someone who would be coming from the outside might have?
That's obviously a question that the people of Burlington will be deciding. Obviously, in terms of a campaign, we are going to defend the record, what I consider to be an excellent record that we have established during the last 6 years. But that's not all. If that was all that we were doing, is defending our record, that's not good enough to seek re-election upon. During the course of this campaign, we are going to bring forth a wide variety of ideas, new thoughts as to how we can improve the quality of life in the city of Burlington. So in other words, we're not just running upon what we did. We're going to be running on a fresh new agenda of new ideas, and I'm quite excited about bringing those ideas forth to the people, and I'm quite excited about the possibility of being able to implement them during the next 2 years.
What's one of them? One new idea.
One new idea? Well, certainly in terms of waterfront, there are a whole variety of new ideas, which we'll be talking about in the near future. In terms of housing, there are new ideas. In terms of economic development and job creation, there are new ideas.
Could we be more specific?
Well, I would rather not at this time, and we have a long campaign, and I promise you that we will bring forth many ideas in many areas.
Mayor, it's widely known that during the last, but before you ran for governor, that you had a certain amount of sort of disenchantment with the job of mayor, that you had been doing it for a long time and were, you know, even openly wondering how much longer you wanted to do it. What's changed? Have you been revitalized by your run for governor?
Well, first of all, some of that open speculation is a little bit of gossip. I think it's fair to say, but what it is fair to say is that I did enjoy the campaign for the governorship very, very much. Right now, I feel very alive politically. I feel that our administration is capable of coming up with a lot of new, exciting ideas. As I mentioned earlier, if we are not capable of running the city with as much vigor and enthusiasm and joy as we have in the last 6 years, then we shouldn't be running again. And that is a consideration. I did sit down and talk to myself and have to determine, do I have the energy? It's a tough job. And I would not have made this decision unless I felt that I had the energy and the enthusiasm to go forward in a very positive way. And I think as many people understand, our administration is, and I think even our opponents would acknowledge this, a hard-working administration. And we are not going to do the job unless we can do it with enthusiasm and with a lot of energy. We can do that, and we will do that.
Mayor Sanders, you say your administration is important to you. You're not perfect. We made mistakes. What mistakes have you made that you regret the most?
Well, that's a very hard question. Did I say that? Okay. I think, for example, in terms of the Alden project, probably the issue in its complexity was just too much. It was an issue that I think after we spent tremendous amount of time trying to explain what tax incremental financing about, what the nature of the mixed economic development was about, I think after the end of it, probably most people still do not fully understand what we're talking about. I would not do that again.
Have you made the campaign manager?
Not right now, but we will certainly have one within a week.
Within a week? Is that when David Friedman in the running?
No.
Do you have a campaign chest?
We had a fundraiser just the other day, and we have begun to raise some money. But, you know, we will do our best. There's nothing I can say about fundraising. It's not pleasant, and the amount of money that has been spent in recent years is very high. It's too high. But we will do our best to raise what we need to win.
How much do you think you're going to need to spend?
Hard to say. I mean, the history of the thing is that when I ran the first time in 1981, if my memory is correct, I raised about $4,000, and I think Mr. Paquette probably raised about the same. The next time around, we raised approximately $30,000, and last time maybe a little bit less than that. That's a lot of money. We'll raise what we need to win, and hopefully it will not be a high-spending campaign.
Mayor, you have an obvious love for articulating your position on statewide issues, and I'm wondering how much of a factor in your decision to run again was the credibility that being mayor of Burlington affords you, as opposed to your want to do.
Well, Stuart, I think most people understand me well enough by now to understand that I'm not a conventional politician. I didn't come here in the conventional manner, and issues to me are not easily separated. In other words, when I sit here as mayor of the city of Burlington and for the last 5 years do my best to come up with alternatives to the property tax, for example, clearly there is no way that one can approach that problem without looking at Montpelier and the relationship of state government to local government. We lost $1 million of revenue sharing. State government is not replacing that. Clearly, as a member of the League of Cities and Towns, and as the mayor of the largest city in the state, it is absolutely essential, I think, for me and my administration and the city to play a leading role in that whole debate. The other point is, in terms of citizen involvement, I was just recently criticized, in fact, by the editors of the Free Press. Should the city of Burlington be involved in trying to do something to lower electric rates and telephone rates? Should we be involved in the issue of health care? Should we be involved in those tangential issues which affect our citizens? How do we relate to the legislature on those areas? I think we are going to be involved. I think we should be involved. I think it is a proper function of city government to organize people around those issues which are of concern to their lives and to have an impact on state government. For too long, much too long, state government has operated in a vacuum without, I think, properly hearing the needs and the cries of the people.
I understand that, but I mean, at what point are you going to outgrow the job of mayor of Burlington?
Will I outgrow? You know, let's not kid ourselves. Being mayor of the city of Burlington is probably the second most important job within state government, outside of the congressional delegation. It is a very important job. It is the second largest budget in the state, behind state government. And as mayor, we have unlimited opportunities to involve people in a wide variety of exciting programs. It is an extremely challenging job, and it's a job that I won't tell you I enjoy every single day, but in fact, I do enjoy and have received tremendous satisfaction out of.
But not for a while.
Well, I'm not, let's 2 years at a time, all right? Don't,
Just going back to his first question, I think he was also asking sort of in a sense, not just is it the proper role of the mayor to be involved in those things, but to what extent you might continue to stay in the mayor's office so that you have a platform for those things.
Okay, again, what are the things that we're talking about? The things that we're talking about are the need to bring about major tax reform in the state of Vermont so that we have a fair system based on people's ability to pay rather than the regressive property tax. As the mayor of the largest city in the state, when our school board needs large property tax increases, obviously that's an issue that one has got to be involved in. I think every mayor and every select person should be involved in that issue.
But are you also saying that it's an issue that you can organize more effectively as mayor than, say, as just an average citizen if you were not to be mayor?
I would say that I hold, you know, and again, there are honest people who disagree with me. I have a very broad interpretation of what the role of city government is. In other words, I think it proper that the City Council of Burlington speak out and move aggressively on telephone rates, healthcare situations, national priorities. All right? I think that it's proper, and I think it's proper not only for the mayor, but members of the Board of Aldermen to do the same.
Back last mayoral election, you carried 5 wards and tied Brian Burns up in Ward 4. Then on November 4th, Madeline Kunin kind of kicked your butt all over the city. How do you interpret those results on November 4th, and how do you read that?
That's a good question, and I honestly don't know the answer. It's a complex question, and I don't know. We'll tell you the day after the election for mayor. I think, at the very least, what can be said is that the people of Burlington felt that Governor Kunin has done a good job for governor and wanted to see her reelected. I think that goes without saying. And that's about all that we can say at this time. I mean, again, what has to be understood is I was running for another job. And there is, and I would say that's the major factor, but more than that, I would just be speculating.
Was there any challenge within the Progressive Coalition at all?
Not that I know of at this moment. I have not heard that. No. That is not to say that it may not happen, but I have not heard that. I mean, won't be shocked if somebody comes forward on Saturday. I don't know that person yet.
Did anyone urge you not to run?
No, actually not. Actually not. I think there's, among the people who have been most active in the Progressive Coalition, I think that there's a good deal of enthusiasm for this race.
Do you expect that the Progressive Coalition will come up with any kind of platform or agenda that they'd like to see?
I think one of the things that certainly will be happening on Saturday is a discussion, as we have in the past, of the major issues facing the state, facing the city, in terms of housing, economic development, waterfront, and so forth. Yeah, I think that'll be discussed on Saturday.
Can you make any kind of general comment about, it seems that either Carol Stewart or Paul Lafayette are like Carol Stewart called for a new beginning in the city. Paul Lafayette, in making his intentions known a couple of months ago, talked about an end to the divisiveness within the city and the bitter rank and so on. If that becomes a campaign issue, do you think that, one, that's a fair issue to raise, and secondly, that I wonder if you make a general comment about either or both?
Well, I know both Carol and Paul, and they're bright people, and I am not going to get involved in any way, shape, or form in the decisions of the Democratic Party to nominate their candidate. They have their business to do, and they'll nominate the candidate who they feel is the best, and that's their business. In terms of the issues, I'm sure that we'll be debating the issues, and I'm delighted to do that. I would say that sometimes, in terms of the so-called bitter rancor which exists in city government, sometimes honest and frank discussion coming from different philosophical positions is misinterpreted as bitterness and rancor. And sometimes that happens. Sometimes honest people fighting for their point of view disagree with each other. But I am very proud, to be honest with you, at the level of discussion which takes place on the Board of Aldermen. I think the level of discussion today in each of the three political factions is probably higher than it's ever been. And when you're trying to do something new, and you're operating outside of the mainstream of political life, there are going to be serious differences in point of view. And the fact that people here get together and differ, I think, is a healthy process. I prefer it much to what was in existence before I was mayor, where you used to have relatively little open and vigorous debate.
Who would you rather run against, Carol Stewart or?
That's the decision. I can simply say, very frankly, that I think either one of them will be very, very strong and tough opponents, and I take absolutely nothing for granted. And again, the Democrats will nominate whom they wish to nominate, and that's their business and not mine. But I do not underestimate either of them.
Most of the time, someone in an executive position, the longer they stay in office, sometimes they get stronger, but sometimes they just accumulate more people who don't like them.
Yep.
They're negative factors. Are you stronger this time than you were 2 years ago?
It's hard to say, and it gets back to the question, the fair question, I think, that Peter raised. I think it is fair to say that after 6 years as mayor of the city, that every time that you make a decision, and in 6 years we have made many, many decisions, that every time you make a decision, there is somebody or there is some group that is unhappy with the decision that you made. And, I will tell you the day after the election whether we are stronger or not, but I should really tell you that we go into this race without overconfidence. That I can tell you. We expect a very, very tough race, no matter who the candidate is. And I take nothing for granted. I intend to campaign very, very vigorously and put together as strong a movement as we can to secure the election.
Have you taken a poll yet?
No.
You got it?
I don't think so. I mean, I think we'll be using, again, I'm not going to tell you that definitively. I think we'll be using the telephone to do voter ID and stuff like that. I don't know that we'll be taking a poll similar to what apparently Carol Stewart did.
Will David Lavelle work on this campaign?
Not that I know of at the present moment. Okay? Okay, thanks very much.
I need one of those. Can I take that one? Great, thanks.
Party members are expected to nominate him as their candidate this coming weekend. Alva Taylor has more on today's announcement.
The announcement had been expected.
Okay, for those who are interested, there's a statement over here.
The mayor's plans were leaked last week, less than a month after Bernard Sanders lost his bid to become governor. Today, reporters asked him about the change in campaign gears from governor to mayor.
I did not turn my back on the people of Burlington. I fought for them in that process.
The battleground was the property tax and ways to reduce it. That will be a continuing issue in a campaign that promises new ideas. Although Sanders offered no details on new proposals today, he did make one promise.
And within 4 years, every street and every sidewalk in the city of Burlington that needs improving will be improved. Today, I am proud to say that we have come a long way in improving the quality of our streets and our sidewalks.
Sanders will run on his record, one he says has helped the economy as evidenced in the number of new business startups on Pine Street, a record Sanders touts as improving the lot of women, senior citizens, and youth. But he also says his administration has not been perfect, pointing to the failed Alden waterfront bond plan as a mistake he does not intend to repeat.
It was an issue that I think after we spent tremendous amount of time trying to explain what tax incremental financing about, what the nature of the mixed economic development was about. I think after the end of it, probably most people still do not fully understand what we're talking about. I would not do that again.
Sanders expects the Progressive Party to nominate him this weekend. Democrat Carol Stewart has announced for mayor. Democrat Paul Lafayette will announce tomorrow. Sanders says Lafayette and Stewart are bright, tough candidates. He says the Democrats' final choice will leave him feeling anything but overconfident. Alva Taylor, Channel 3 News, Burlington.
Ironic also said the newly enacted gross receipts tax will offset the loss of federal revenue sharing money.
With the demise of revenue sharing, the gross receipts tax not only had a beneficial effect in terms of balancing this year's budget, but also in terms of offsetting the loss of revenues in fiscal year 86's budget. So, in effect, the timely adoption of the gross receipts tax helped offset the loss of federal revenue sharing funds which occurred in fiscal year 86 as well as fiscal year 87.
The gross receipts tax is expected to bring in more money in 1987 when it will have been on the books for...
At a news conference at City Hall this afternoon, the socialist mayor said his is the second most important post in the state, and he wants another 2 years to move the city forward. He says his recent campaign for governor does not indicate he's no longer interested in city issues.
Right now, I feel very alive politically. I feel that our administration is capable of coming up with a lot of new, exciting ideas. As I mentioned earlier, if we are not capable of running the city with as much vigor and enthusiasm and joy as we have in the last 6 years, then we shouldn't be running again. And that is a consideration. I did sit down and talk to myself and have to determine, do I have the energy? It's a tough job. And I would not have made this decision unless I felt that I had the energy and the enthusiasm to go forward in a very positive way.
So far, one Democrat, Carol Stewart, is in the race. Another Democrat, Alderman Paul Lafayette, will announce his candidacy for mayor tomorrow.
For 175 laid-off alcoholics.